CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Welcome to this Razor special. I'm Shanice O'Mara.
And I'm Emma Keeling.
The 25th United Nations Climate Change Conference begins this week in Madrid. It's known as the COP25, or the Conference of the Parties.
The agreement signed in 2015 sets out a plan to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees.
Just recently, more than 11,000 scientists put their names to a document that declares that we are, without any doubt, facing a climate emergency. So it's not surprising that Razor has already looked at several CO2 stories.
One of the most enjoyable shoots I've had so far has been my visit to the Energy Observer, a beautiful boat on a round-the-world journey to prove that a mix of green technologies could one day power a clean shipping industry.
One day I found myself in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean without energy, following a breakdown of the alternator and defective solar panels. That day I decided that I had to find a solution. I imagined a clean and intelligent ship capable of optimizing the energy mix that nature makes available to us, equipped with an innovative energy system capable of producing and storing renewable energy through hydrogen. That day was born Energy Observer.
The shipping industry is one of the most polluting. 90% of trade is seaborne, creating 2 to 3% of the world's total greenhouse gas emissions. But this boat is on a 6-year mission around the world using solar, wind, hydrogen and battery power in an effort to prove that there is a greener way.
The Energy Observer is 2 years into its journey and has visited 25 countries with 25 to go. London is the 47th stopover.
Can you hear something? Can you hear something?
Very quiet. Very quiet.
Very quiet.
I can't hear anything because it's running on renewable energy.
It is the new world of the mobility.
Former Merchant Navy officer Victorian Arusad is the founder and captain of the boat.
Since the beginning of the expedition, we have been able to test different technologies in different weather conditions.
Which of the technologies has outperformed your expectations?
We were nicely surprised by our solar panels, as they turned out to be much more adaptable than we initially thought, reacting very well to difficult weather conditions, a lot of passage and changing temperatures. No sun, no wind. Not good for our system.
So hydrogen?
But we have hydrogen on board and battery.
The Energy Observer is sponsored by commercial interests and is also supported by the European Commission, UNESCO and IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency.
You see, here we have the 3 different kinds of solar panels that we have this year.
Louis Noel Viviers is the development manager.
Some more here on on all the vertical, areas available.
Yeah.
So you've got this new generation. They are very light, flexible. These one are the prototype that we have been designed with the National Solar Energy Institute. So they are double-faced. They take up to 30% of their power from behind.
So that you can get a reflection off the water and get power from there?
Absolutely. They get the reflection from the water and from the paint, because the paint is slightly metallized, which means that they are the most efficient solar panels on the market today. They are not on the market, by the way. Not yet. Do you want to see the wings working?
I'd love to see the wings.
Okay.
The ocean wings are like sails and have been used in the America's Cup race. They complement the electric motors, improving efficiency. In reality, they work like an aeroplane wing, which provides lift, whereas these provide forward motion.
Are you excited about this technology?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of profile, it is twice as efficient as a standard sail.
So how does it work?
Fully automatically, you just don't do nothing. You just push on a button, it raises, it adjusts itself to the best angle, it creates you some apparent wings, so there is a virtuous circle, it creates its own speed, which creates some more wind, which creates some more speed, and then you just add some electricity if you need, and you've got a fabulous mix of energies. If you invest, let's say, 1 kilowatt in the motors, you get 5 or 6 kilowatts in return. We think we have saved about 40% of our energy since Tromsø in Norway, up to the Spitsberg, back to here. We just believe it is the future of the navigation, because you can put them on any kind of boat.
On board, there are 4 tanks of hydrogen on either side and a set of 112 kilowatt lithium-ion batteries that feed the electric motors. Another set of 18 kilowatt batteries power the facilities. The two systems weigh about the same, but the hydrogen storage contains over 7 times more power than the batteries.
Altogether, we've got 62 kilos of hydrogen, which provide us 2 megawatts of energy. So with this energy, we can sail with no wind, with no sun, for about 3 days and 3 nights. So now let's have a look at the
Desalination.
desalination stage. Yeah.
Salt water into pure water.
Absolutely.
So many different little hidey holes in this place.
What's different about this desalination plant is the first step provides water for the crew, but there are 2 more steps.
And then we got the second and the third stages designed to produce the purest water as possible. And this water is then sent to the other hull on the other side to be electrolyzed. Wow. It is electrolyzed over there, then it is sent back in the front compartment to be compressed. And then it is sent back again on the right hull to be put into the bottles, to be stored in the hydrogen bottles. An average efficiency of the system, which is today about 25%, and 25% from the first kilowatt from the sun to the last kilowatt to the propeller, it is the same efficiency as a diesel engine today.
The hydrogen is made on board by electrolysis, where an electric current is passed through water, producing hydrogen and oxygen.
So it was quite tricky because we don't have a lot of space here, and we had to be able to build up this factory able to produce 5 kilos of pure hydrogen every day. 5 kilos of pure hydrogen, it is the same as, let's say, 20 liters of pure gasoline every day.
The hydrogen is then fed into the fuel cell.
This looks like a giant science project. What are we looking at here?
That's just a fuel cell, very simple fuel cell.
All joking aside, a hydrogen fuel cell consists of 2 electrodes, an anode and a cathode separated by a membrane. Hydrogen gas is supplied to one side and oxygen from the air supplies the other. Inside the anode, a platinum catalyst splits the hydrogen molecules into positive hydrogen ions and negatively charged electrons. The membrane allows the positively charged hydrogen to pass through, forcing the negative electrons along an external circuit. The movement around the circuit creates an electrical current and heat. Another catalyst in the cathode causes the negatively charged electrons and positively charged hydrogen ions to combine with the oxygen to form water.
Is this one of the things that when maritime industry people come on board, is this what they get excited about? Is this what they're most interested in?
Yeah, because there is no maintenance. There is absolutely no moving parts. Some of these fuel cells have been above 30,000 hours of work with no maintenance. There is no diesel engine in the world able to do this amount of hours. During the next winter, on the other hull, on this boat, we will put a new fuel cell, a new generation, much lighter one, and it will be about 100 kilowatts. Wow. Much more powerful than this one, but it is much smaller, compact. It's about 5 times the same power, half of the weight.
When I came out of the boat this morning, I thought, how on earth did they figure out what energy to use when. When do you store it? When does something get used? Does it happen overnight? Does it happen during the day? Well, all those decisions aren't actually made by the captain. They're made by a giant brain that's hidden underneath here that decides just how energy efficient this boat can be.
All the sources of energies actually are just managed by this big brain here, okay? This is the instant production of the hydro energy. You know, if there is some current on the river, for instance, and the propellers go the other way around, they produce electricity too. This is the production of the wind turbines or the wings, and this is the production of the fuel cell.
What's the cleverest part of this hub, this brain, do you think?
So the computer will have the forecast of the light, of the sun, of the wind for the next 3 days, let's say, and it will say, okay, I have this amount of energy in hydrogen, I have this amount of energy in batteries, and I know that there will be a lot of sun tomorrow, but then I will have 3 days with just rain and heavy wind against me. So it will
plan a route.
Plan a route for you to be the most efficient from point A to point B. The objective is to be able to provide a system that can be managed by any kind of crew. If we need to have full-time engineers on board, it's a waste of time. You know, it has to be fully automatic. The idea is to convince the vast majority of the maritime community that it is simple and affordable, actually, and very safe.
The experimentation doesn't stop. Soon they hope to use a new generation fuel cell in the form of LOHC, liquid organic hydrogen carrier.
It's like gasoline, but it is loaded with hydrogen. And it is the same density, energetic density as the gasoline. But it works with the ambient temperature, with the ambient pressure. So it takes the same room as a gasoline tank. It will be a very big revolution.
Captain Erusard sees the Energy Observer as part of a greater revolution.
I simply wanted to show that it is possible to navigate otherwise. And it is a much more effective way to educate politicians, citizens, and industrialists with a real ship that can be tested and touched rather than a few promising slides of a keynote presentation showing a time in the future. The future must be now.
Whether it's about your education, the home you live in, or the items you buy, your money has a story to tell. Because every business story is a human story. Global Business.
One of the biggest highlights for me was achieving a lifelong dream of visiting Iceland. There I found that research is well underway to sequester carbon dioxide from industrial processes and store it permanently as rock, thousands of metres below our feet.
Iceland is one of the most geothermically active countries in the world. All of its electricity comes from this renewable resource. The Hellisheidi power plant just outside of Reykjavik is one of the biggest in Europe. Steam is accessed from underground to create the power, but it brings CO2 with it. Dr. Edda Adedotis from Reykjavik Energy is the project manager of a joint venture called Carbfix, pioneering a process to capture that CO2.
So we think of geothermal as, all very natural, but actually it is emitting CO2, isn't it?
This power plant, for example, only emits 3% of the CO2 coal-burning power plant of the same size emits. Last year, we captured and injected a third of the CO2 emissions from the power plant.
So how do they capture CO2? Steam and hot water are pumped to the surface. To generate electricity, the steam drives the turbines and is then cooled and condensed. Gases like carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide from underground are pumped out of the turbine into the scrubber and showered with pure water. Here, CO2 and other gases are dissolved and the non-water soluble gases are vented.
Just like that.
Just like that.
It seems very simple.
It is very simple.
It's almost too simple.
Well, I mean, very often the best solutions are the most simple ones. So yeah.
The CO2 mixture is then piped over to the injection site.
And are all these igloo-looking things, are they all the injection sites, are they?
Yeah, each one of those is an injection well.
A well. Okay.
A well.
So this is the whole site, but these are all wells?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Why igloos?
It's to protect just the equipment inside from the harsh weather during winter.
And it looks good.
It looks good, yeah. This well is about 2 kilometers deep.
Wow.
It's closed off down to 700 meters, meaning that what we inject can only exit the well, go into the bedrock below that depth. And then reactions that occur in nature between the rock and the dissolved gases turn the gases into stone.
Nature plays a big part. Basalt rock is cooled lava and contains calcium, magnesium and iron, which reacts to the CO2 mixture, forming solid calcium carbonate in the rock's pores.
So this is a core we drilled into the storage formation a few years back. And then we have the white veins and spots in between, and that's mineralized CO2. And turns out that what we inject is turned into rock like this in less than 2 years. So it's a very efficient and effective process, permanently getting rid of CO2.
Iceland is now looking at applying this technology to heavy industrial plants and other CO2 emitting sources in the country. Wherever there is basalt rock, this process can work. It's the most common rock type on Earth, covering around 10% of continents, while most areas within the Earth's ocean basins are underlain by basalt.
The storage capacity is huge.
Professor Sigurgeirs Larsen is the co-founder of Carbfix.
On a big scale, we looked at all of the oceanic ridges. Of course, it's probably not economically to do it, but you could take all the CO2 from burning of all fossil fuel that we know of on Earth. You could take that CO2 and you can store it into all of the oceanic ridges. There is enough storage capacity for it, but we will not do it. It's not economical to do it. You will find the solution closest to the source. For example, if you are burning here, you have a coal-fired power plant here in Northern Europe, it might be best just to put it in the sedimentary basins here close to Norway, a short distance for travel.
One disadvantage is the amount of water needed for the process. It takes around 25 tonnes to convert 1 tonne of CO2.
I mean, we don't have enough water, do we?
Exactly, and that's why we are, when we take this and expand this all over the world, this method, we're going to need something else. Therefore, we're going out to sea. There's infinite source of water on the coastline. But what's tricky with seawater contains dissolved sulfur and calcium to start with. And at high temperature, if you go much higher than 150, this sulfur can steal the calcium away from the calcite that we want to form. So we are trying to define the temperature window, where we can inject, and that means temperature window is actually how deep down in the earth can we put our injection wells, because it gets hotter and hotter as you go down. So these experiments will help us to define how we can play with seawater when we inject. This is, as we say, very hot stuff. and it looks like, I mean, it's working very well.
You're very busy.
Well, yeah, we are all very busy, and we should all be very busy when we're trying to save the world. What we're doing is just a drop in the bucket. Presently, we are emitting about 40 gigatons per year of CO2. We have to be extremely focused to get going, to capture CO2 as fast as we can. And then later on, in the second half of the century, we have to clean it from air because we're not doing it fast enough.
Carbfix is also collaborating with Swiss company Climeworks to capture CO2 directly from the air. The prototype unit at Hetlathady captures around 50 tonnes a year.
Even here in Iceland, we might build power plants just to drive air cleaning systems. And that might be a great role where Carbfix could play in the future, simply cleaning the air for the better of mankind.
Wind power has long been a mainstay of sustainable energy production. Our colleague, Guy Henderson, travelled to Madrid, Spain, to meet a company that's harnessing a kind of byproduct of wind, formerly more associated with disasters than solutions.
November 1940, an historic moment in engineering history. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge disaster in the USA changed the way we think about building large structures. Ever since, engineers have tried to avoid a phenomenon called vortex-induced oscillation, which is what destroyed the bridge.
But what if, instead, that oscillation could be harnessed and turned into a source of renewable energy? I'm Guy Henderson in Madrid, Spain, where decades of engineering norms are being turned upside down to create a structure that's designed to shake. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Very good to meet you.
David Yanez runs a company called Vortex Bladeless and believes he's found a new way to harness the wind's energy.
This is called a Vortex Bladeless.
Yes, yes. In fact, we have something like one blade. It's a hollow tube, a vertical mast. We oscillate with the wind with the resonant. When two frequencies, the vortexes and the natural frequency of the structure start to move, we have a way to collect energy from the wind, to transmit energy from the fluid to the structure.
So it oscillates in the wind to create energy.
Exactly.
So Jose, why are you showing me this ruler?
Well, this is a good way to understand the natural frequency of any structure. This oscillates corresponding to its mechanical characteristics, its length, its strength, and everything. So we base our technology in the natural frequency oscillation of, in our case, a rod of carbon fiber. The easiest way to understand how the vortices are created around, in our case, a cylinder or any bluff body is this, for example, this video. The wind comes in this direction. The wind produces a physical phenomena here in which the pressure is high and low in both sizes alternatively. So at the end, vortices are produced, and these forces produce the movement of the ruler.
Okay, so in an area of low pressure, that would draw the object back towards that area of low pressure.
Okay, yeah, okay. That's correct. If the natural frequency of the device or the ruler and the natural frequency of the vortices are the same, it self-sustains.
Here we have the wind tunnel. You can just see it's completely made from wood.
Prototypes are tested in this wind tunnel downstairs.
We've seen the headlines out in the field. What exactly is happening here?
What's happening here is a physical phenomena called vortex shedding or vortex street effect. It's a phenomena that happens when a fluid, in this case the wind, passes through or around a slender structure. It's a phenomena that you can usually see on flags, on chimneys. Also, well, in aeronautics, it's well known, but everybody is trying to avoid it because it causes some turbulences on the planes or whatever, and it can make the buildings collapse, like Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Nobody has investigated how to enhance this process or how to absorb the much amounts of energy from the wind in this way.
You really are the pioneers, really, of this. No one else has really been doing anything like
this is the state of the art. This is completely new in everything. All the patents are new, all the investigation, all the papers. It's a completely new line of investigation, yeah. So
Inside, the key component.
hollow, and it's very, very light.
Very simple science here,
Yeah.
but you have an alternator in here. I know you're a bit sensitive about us getting too close to it because it's prized technology, right?
Yeah.
But what, in very simple terms, what does the alternator do? What's that in there? Why is that
Well,
there?
an alternator, as any other alternator, it converts movement to electricity.
A standard alternator is basically a magnet that rotates inside a coil of copper wire. Movement of the magnetic field relative to the coil generates electricity. So in a car, for example, the engine spins the alternator, generating power to charge batteries and drive the electrics. The Vortex alternator is a little different.
In our case, the movement is not a spin, it's like a spherical movement. So we needed to develop a new kind of alternator.
And that's another thing that has not really been done before.
No.
The alternator is driven by a carbon fibre rod inside the cone. Comillas Pontifical University is where these rods are tested. Here scientists test all kinds of material to their limit, including graphene.
This material is made from a liquid polymer, which is a plastic, really. We mix it with graphene, and we have this dispersion of graphene on the polymer. Afterwards, we mix it with carbon fiber, and we end up hardening the material in order to get this plastic composite.
A plastic composite, and the question, of course, is this going to be strong enough for the task of oscillation? The sample is placed into a special machine that stretches it. Graphene can normally withstand such pressure.
You can see the load, the strength.
Okay, so it's pulling it.
We're pulling the sample, so basically what we're checking is how much does the material stand the force we're applying.
But the graphene would stretch a little bit.
The whole material, the polymeric matrix, as well as the fibers, are stretching till some point.
Yeah. Oh!
It did break.
Did it break? It broke.
It broke.
It's failed. This isn't how it was supposed to go.
Good. We didn't bet.
Wow. There we go. A surprise for us.
Because the fiber is in this direction.
Okay, so it has broken here. There is a crack.
It did,
okay.
yeah.
Just in the clamps.
So it is breakable. We've established that, but it's still very strong. Right?
It's very strong.
And
yeah.
very,
strong.
flexible, as in it can survive the oscillation.
It is much more strong than what is needed for the application.
Okay. Your specialty is graphene.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long has this been produced?
10 years or so.
Okay. So it's quite a new material.
It's a new material. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a new material.
Okay.
It was actually a Nobel Prize was won because of the discovery of the material, and so from then till today, they've been trying to use this material in different applications because the material itself has really nice properties for mechanical and electrical properties that can be used for different applications and different products.
The hope is to roll out the Vortex Bladeless in cities. At less than 3 meters tall, they'd fit on a small roof, even an apartment balcony. The dream, though, is scaling up, so that one day, wind farms like these can be bladeless.
That's it for this edition of our Razor Climate Specials.
Next week, we'll look at an all-new type of highway, the electric highway.
Okay, so we're going 52 kilometers an hour. And we're now going to put on the gas. So as we turn out, a pantograph comes automatically down. That's just built into the system. Very quickly passing Gregor, the other driver, and then we swerve back in when we're safe to do so. And so it's at this point you can only put the system back up manually, but you just push a button. That's simple. Simple as that. Nice job.
Thank you.